Another New York Giants loss in the books. It is the seventh on the season for the New York Football Giants. And I'm just really like counting down the days. Maybe not till football season ends. Maybe I am. I don't know, because then you have the Yankees on the other hand. But at least until the bye week for me, because you have the Panthers next Sunday at 9:30, and you're pretty much off the next week. Maybe we'll have a content creator on for some sort of a discussion. And of course, we'll get into the nitty gritty. But this just gets fucking boring to talk about every single week, man. And the team just looks worse and worse every week, right? And I'm not saying that because, I have to review this team every single week and et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's not just because of that, but I mean, I'm really starting to question the play calling. And of course, you guys know my thoughts on Daniel Jones, and we'll get into that. You guys know my thoughts on him already, and now Brian Dable comes out with this weird game plan, which we'll get into. I know some people have concerns about the Malik Neighbors stuff. I didn't read the full quotes from the press conferences because I feel like it's all hogwash. It's all like unnecessary at this point because this team just fucking sucks. I mean, that's just what they are. That's why I didn't believe this season, hey, this team's going to win, 9, 10 games. I was at 6. They may not reach that, right? We are 9 games in. They have about 8 games left. They have 8 games left in this very, very mediocre season, if you want to call it mediocre for the Giants. And, for my prediction to prove right, they need 4 more wins. Where are you getting those wins from? I don't know. But we'll talk about draft position and stuff at the end. As far as the defense goes, I mean, they didn't really play that well either. And I get it, right? Daniel Jones kind of gave them a mulligan with the fumble on the screenplay. But Banks stinks. Like, let's put that out there. Deontay Banks stinks. The Giants only had 5 pressures and 2 quarterback hits, and Andrew Phillips struggled. Not to mention the Giants were not very, very good against the run. I mean, Chris Rodriguez had 4.7 yards per carry. Eckler did decent. Jaden Daniels had some nice plays in the running game. So, I mean, after all, I don't know. I can't really consider this like a moral victory for the Giants. And let's get into the quarterback. Let's start out with the offense, right? As I said, I don't know how long these are going to last from now to the end of the season because it's talking about the same spilled milk all over again. It's just it's talking about the same spilled milk, but you spill it over how many times the Giants lose. So the milk has spilled 7 times this season. Is it the same glass of milk? I have no fucking idea. But some people on social media, and I know I really shouldn't be going into that context, but some people on social media were praising Daniel Jones. Oh, it's not Daniel Jones' fault. This game, he did the best he could, etc., etc. May I remind you that Daniel Jones finished the half with 4 completions, 6 attempts, and less than 0 passing yards. For some reason, the New York Football Giants, over the course of the years, especially within the last few, have made history in the most worst ways possible. You go back to last year, it was Tommy DeVito who threw for -8 passing yards. Then you go to 2021, 2 years before Tommy DeVito, you have Mike Glennon throw for like -11 passing yards against the Chicago Bears, which was the ultimate Joe Judge, I'm going to get my ass fired by saying some stupid shit in a press conference. So, Daniel Jones, I mean, you look at the stats, and you think, okay, Daniel Jones had an average Daniel Jones game. I'm going to say right now, he probably had a worse than Daniel Jones type of game, because how do you go in to halftime 4-6, 0 passing yards? Like, PFF graded him as the second best quarterback of the week, and of course, right, sometimes you'll have a rough start or this, that, and the third, and you will try to help your team come back for certain things, right? You'll help them come back to a win, right? A fourth quarter comeback, a third quarter comeback, an overtime comeback. That's not who Daniel Jones is. It's not. We know this. But it was all for naught. He threw 174 yards in the second half, 2 touchdowns. came in. Actually, the first touchdown came in the first half. So he was 4 of 6, less than 0 yards and a touchdown, which is a pretty compelling in the wrong way stat line. And his passer rating was good. His QBR was good. But sorry, folks. I'm just not going to buy into this week's faction of Daniel Jones. It wasn't his fault. Fuck yes, it was. Because you had the fumble, which nobody talks about. And, again, I can't get over the stat line of 4 of 6, less than 0 yards, and 1 touchdown. Like, I think the Giants had a broken record since 2000 or something like that. Only one time that has happened. It shouldn't have happened, but this is the New York Football Giants. We make the history in the worst ways possible. We make it in the worst ways possible. And, why not add more to the clown show? And then next week we face the Panthers, which is going to be an interesting... You know what they should do? They should just refund all the Germany tickets. And they won't do this because this is the NFL. They like their money overseas. Refund all the Germany tickets. Bring it back to fucking Carolina. Because if that's going to be... First of all, to be completely honest with you, who thought that Carolina and the Giants were actually going to be good this coming year? Like, who put that on the schedule? Oh, yeah, we're going to put Giants and Carolina, 2 shitty teams overseas. That's not a good marketing tool. Like, bring the Chiefs over. Like, they did Chiefs-Dolphins. I think it was last year, right? Or the year prior. They brought the Chiefs and the Dolphins over there. And was it the greatest game on turf? Fuck no, but it was still better than what we're going to see this coming week with Daniel Jones and maybe Bryce Young or Randy Dalton. But it's just madness, man. It's just madness. So, and you know what? It kind of pains me, right? It pains me a little bit, just for me and for the fan base that listens to this show, is that I have to pound the Daniel Jones rock pretty much every friggin' week from now till the end of the season, unless he gets benched, which God knows if that's going to happen. But I have to pound that fucking rock, right? I have to pound that rock because he's the starting quarterback. And this is the same shit we see every week. He, one half of football he'll play. He'll miss targets, this, that, and the third. So, it's a hamster wheel, but we're never getting off the hamster wheel of mediocrity unless we get a new quarterback. Might need a new coach. And listen, I'm not really trying to sit here and openly advocate for people's jobs, but Brian Daboll, I'm starting to get real sick and tired of the whole charade. That could bridge us into play calling. I damn well know that Daniel Jones is not a too much capable quarterback. Can't make him pass over 30 times. That can't happen. 40 times, no. 20 times, of course. You kind of have to do that. But they had a very weird game plan in the first half. And that kind of contributed to Daniel Jones 4-6 for less than 0 yards. Is that they wanted to run the football, which honestly, you look at revisionist history on the preview show before we got to the Corey discussion. I said the Giants, as key number 3, will need to run the football. Now, a couple other things played into that, right? Time of possession, this, that, and the third. I also listed some other keys about containing Jaden Daniels, forcing a turnover. Let's see. I have the sheet actually right in front of me. So 3 was running the football, 3rd down, time of possession. The Giants also weren't very good on... I don't think they were great on 3rd down. They were better in this game. But also you look at the time of possession for this game, and it wasn't as bad as the first game either. It was 32-28 Giants. So, and as far as 3rd down, I was just talking about that. 5 of 12, the Giants were 6 of 11, and both teams were 2 of 2 on 4th down. So, that really didn't play a part. It was just a matter of the offense not clicking once again. They clicked for one half, if you want to think about it. And the defense really didn't come up to play in the biggest spots because, we'll talk about that. I'm not going to go into that now. But Brian Daboll's philosophy, again, strange and revisionist by me. But you come in as a ground and pound team. You're not necessarily efficient. And obviously you punt very, very quickly, or however that drive ended. And Tracy's pounding the rock, a guy that's coming off concussion. Singletary also has some carries. Looks like he's being phased out of the offense. And then Washington puts up 7. You still continue to run the football. And then they put up another 7 after you come back with that drive going down the field, Chris Mannertz and stuff like that. Like, let's review that drive, shall we? let's do the play-by-play on that drive. So we'll do, where did the Giants put up 7? 16 plays, 73 yards, right? Singletary run, Singletary run, Singletary run, Tracy run, Tracy run, Jones run, Tracy run, Tracy run, Singletary run. Wan'Dale Robinson passed for -6 yards. 11-yard pass to, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't even an 11-yard pass. It was an 11-yard scramble by Daniel Jones. Then a neutral zone infraction. Then Daniel Jones for 2 yards. Then Daniel Jones for 12 yards. Then a 3-yard pass play. I mean, that's just not sustainable. Like, at some point, and I get to an extent that you got to have this game plan sometimes of, because your offense is bad, you got to play down. You got to have this run type offense, the time of possession game. But your defense has to be on par with that too, and they really weren't. Not that they were on the field for 100 hours, but it still wasn't like great, because you look at what the defense did. Could they have held them to more points in terms of, like, could they have held them to 20 points? Yeah. Could they have given up more points? Fuck yeah, they could have. But I'm still not happy with the effort, right? But again, I know I'm shifting too much. Just, you're down by 7. At least show us, proof-wise, that Daniel Jones can't get the ball down the field. Now, I kind of already know that. The fans kind of already know that. The people already know that. But maybe in this game, Daniel Jones, and it showed in the second half, actually. Like, they didn't attempt too many balls downfield, passing-wise, to Malik Neighbors or any of these guys in the first half. Malik Neighbors barely was seen in the first half. Theo Johnson, I mean, he had some drops. But those guys were barely seen in the first half, because their game plan was run the football, do this, do that. It's just like, I'm tired of that. Show me, and the problem is, if you do end up showing it, because it's kind of a lose-lose situation, you do show that Daniel Jones can't throw the ball deep or accurately, then everybody's going to focus in on the run. And things kind of switched in the second half to where they couldn't run the football for shit, but all of a sudden they were passing very well. Now, the thing to that is, and I'm going to critique them on it, is you were out of the game. You came out, right? The Giants scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, which I'll talk about the 2-point conversions in a second. But coming out of the second quarter, halftime, and you go into the third quarter, you were down 21-7. Let's take a look at the first drive by the Giants. They ended up doing a field goal. So they 7-yard sack, Tyrone Tracy run, then actually no, there was a roughing the passer penalty, so they didn't really do much there. But a run play, pass left for 6, pass right for 3. He had a short middle pass for 16 yards to Malik Neighbors. So then they started getting it going, but there were still some very stupid play calls, and it's just like, you got to stick to one thing. You got to stick to one thing. You can't just be, this 1 second and that the other second. I mean, there's a lot of missed opportunities. A lot of coaching errors, and the offensive line, I mean, I don't even know how to properly evaluate them these last few weeks. I mean, they did pretty good against this Washington front with some no-names on defense that have been sparring up the last few weeks because Washington's that good. Hubbard was decent, but, that doesn't really say much for his caliber type player. But I'm just not a fan of the game plan. You start out the first half, you run, you're down 21-7, and I'm going to, again, reference this. I know I'm going crisscross. Before the touchdown, right? What did the Giants do? Pass incomplete, Tracy for 2 yards, pass to Theo Johnson incomplete. And I'm pretty sure that was when he had the drop, or you want to consider a Jeremy Chin pass breakup. Theo Johnson dropping the ball wasn't good. He's a rookie, though, so I'm going to forgive him. And I think he's got a bright future as a Giant. Not like an extremely bright future, like at the end of the tunnel light, but he's got a solid future in all that stuff, which is pretty interesting. And that brings me up is like, why is Chris Manhertz catching a touchdown instead of Daniel Bellinger? But that ship has sailed. It seems like the coaching staff is completely sour on him. But you can't keep running this offense the way you did in this game. And I think they did that against the Eagles too, if I'm not mistaken. They did something similar, like they wanted to keep it low, and then the Eagles really wouldn't tolerate it. I think it was what, 14 in the first half, 14 in the second half against the Eagles, because I think the Giants were down something like 14-3. Let's take a look, right? Giants, Eagles, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, they were down 14-3 at half. So no first quarter points, and second half. I mean, again, just like this late to the ball approach. Like, at least have a balance, right? At least have a balance. Not just say, oh, we're going to pound the run. Don't do that. Have a balance, right? Pass, run, this and third. Like, that was completely stupid. I don't know if that's Daniel Jones, that's Theo Johnson not running the right route, or that's Brian Dable. 3rd and 2, I think it was, and they do a pass play, a bootleg to Johnson. He's behind the line of scrimmage by like 2-3 yards. I mean, that's not NFL football. That's not even Pee Wee football. I don't know what that is. So I tend to believe that Brian Dable will keep his job post this year, but things like this game and these last few games kind of give me that, I don't know, he might not be in the building next year type of feeling. Because you can't keep running this simplified offense and then just say, oh, it's all Daniel Jones. You can't say that. I don't like Daniel Jones as a player. I've been saying that I wanted to get rid of him pretty much since Seattle game last year. Didn't really fall for the facades of these decent games with Daniel Jones this year. But at some point, you got to just come off the horse. You got to come off the horse and say, okay, got to look at this thing objectively and talk about the rest of the team. And it hurts, right? Because if you continue to stick Daniel Jones in there and you know he's the problem, who else is going to disagree with you? Who else is going to sit there and be like, yo, we need to get this quarterback out of here? Like, Malik Neighbors is eventually going to get more frustrated. The defense is eventually, and I think they already are, going to get more frustrated. They just haven't said anything. So, and now again, that goes back to main central of the problem, which is the New York Football Giants didn't assess quarterback in any sort of way. They got Drew Lock. I know some people saying, oh, Drew Lock's a decent backup. Well, should have paid Tyrod, or it should have gotten somebody else maybe in the building too, because if Daniel Jones sucks, then you have them. If Daniel Jones beats them out, they're at least a good backup option. But Drew Lock is a player for most people that if you look at him and his play on the field, you'll probably reach to your right for an air sickness bag as quick as possible. So, in that regard, the Giants fucked up. We'll see how many more weeks they play with this. I think they're going to bench him probably after playoff elimination officially, which is probably going to be sometime in November. Well, we are in November, probably late November. I ain't going to any games. If you're a Giants fan, you're a season ticket holder, start selling to the opposing fan base. I know it sucks, but that's just my general opinion on that and what you should do, because there's nothing to watch for the rest of the season. There really isn't. I mean, you could look at Neighbors, you could look at this guy, you could look at that guy for young development, but I mean, it's like there's better things to do. And I say this, even though I'm a content creator, and I have to work my resume, and I have to do a number of things, and I have to give you guys content, but there's so many better things to do on Sundays than to watch the Giants. Go watch another team. If the Knicks play, go watch them. If this team plays, go watch them. Go to the park. Go exercise. Do something. Like, the Giants are pretty much brain rot. They've been brain rot for 10 of the last 12 fucking years. And it's just the same old nonsense. And you have diehard fans who just sit in front of the TV and they don't get excited. They don't get emotional anymore. I mean, the fact that, I started becoming like that this year, to where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get emotional. And I started that, I think, against the Seahawks, and they won against the Seahawks. And then I'm like, against the Bengals, if they win, I'm going to get emotion. But they didn't win. And then it was the Eagles, and then it was the Steelers, and then it was Washington. See the trickled path I'm going on here? That means I didn't get emotional, And I'm not going to get emotional for the rest of the season, but I am going to talk about the issues at hand with this team, which spans more than the quarterback. Gonna have to bring it up at some point. And the GM should take a lot of blame too, because his draft classes, oh, do they look fucking terrible right now. He won't get as much flack because GMs get longer in the league to have their job as an organizational member, as a front office executive. You usually don't see a GM through one regime get fired. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan Pace was a two-term GM. Let's call it like it's a politician. Jerry Reese was a multi-term GM. Bob Quinn was there for 2 head coaches. So I don't think Joe Shane's going to be on any sort of hot seat. I think Brian Daboll will if these type of games continue to get played. And people were talking about Malik Neighbors and his long quote, which really wasn't that much of English. I don't know specifically what he said, but he was talking about like teams building and stuff like that. You could get pissed if you want to. You can get pissed if you want to at him going to the sideline during a challenge and talking with Jaden Daniels. You can if you want. Like, I can't get mad too much at Malik Neighbors because he's done more good than bad. And this is just a very dysfunctional team right now to where it's not just one player or we lost because Neighbors went over to the sideline. No, we lost because this offense is incompetent. This defense is not very good as of this week. Last week they were good. Not this week, though. So you want to talk about, the Neighbors' character concerns? Oh, he's been underwhelming or he's this or he's that. Like, go ahead. I'm just so fucking tired. Like, we're going to see her get on a rookie. Meanwhile, there's guys on this team that have been vets and coaches on this team that have been vets and they're not doing their fucking job. I'm just so, done with it. So, as far as, again, Theo Johnson's drops, I can't. He had a classic case of the dropsies. The yips, whatever. But he had a touchdown late in the game, so I can't really fault him too much. But if you guys haven't already, go to SeatGeek and get $20 off with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. Going with tailgate, a concert, or a game of some sorts, SeatGeek is your best friend. $20 off with your on your online order with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx in all capitals. So let's talk about the defense. The defense very much underwhelmed me this game, and I kind of expected them to be at my expectations of not underwhelming me. So, interestingly enough, the opposite team, the Washington Commanders of Bobby Johnson as their O-line coach, and we shredded him, right? We said, yeah, this guy's a bad coach. I don't know what it is. I feel like there's some sort of a hex on this organization because he goes over there, and a few decent players on that O-line. Tyler Biotish is good. Brendan Coleman was lights out. A couple other guys were lights out. Allegretti is good. So they have a fairly average offensive line, right? Fairly average. And they don't give up a single sack to the Giants' vaunted pass rush. The pass rush that twice has done this against Washington. And, they lead the league in sacks. They're a vaunted defense. I don't understand why they did not come to play these 2 games against the Commanders. The first game you give more of an excuse because it's like, hey, this defense is still working at their craft. They're still building. They only gave up, 21 points, and it was all field goals and this and the third. But this game, your rapport is built, man. Your rapport is built, and you don't get to the quarterback. Like, Brian Burns, non-existent. Dex, he didn't record a single stat other than 6 tackles. You have Aziz with 2 quarterback hits in a TFL. So, I don't understand. The Giants' run defense wasn't great either. They allowed 149 yards on 38 carries, which is about 4 almost yards per carry and 1 touchdown. But Rodriguez was doing good. Jaden Daniels was having his fair share of runs. And Austin Eckler, he did pretty solid. So, was it completely, oh my God, the Giants are getting gashed on every play? No, but it's still not a great sign because the Giants don't have depth behind Dexter Lawrence and all these different guys as we would have thought coming in to the season. So the defense underwhelming me is concerning, right? Because you're going to be facing, I would say, better offenses and maybe even less offenses. Like Carolina's a worse offense. Tampa Bay is probably a better. They might not be better though, because they're dealing with a ton of injuries right now. So I'm going to say that they're a little less better than the Commanders, if that's a term. The Saints, they're probably not a better offense. Cowboys, not a better offense. The Ravens definitely are. The Falcons definitely are on that sort of level. So, but here's the thing, though, right? Those teams I mentioned that have good offenses, the Ravens and maybe the Falcons, those teams we face later in the year, is the defense going to be bought in by that time to where they'll be able to, hold them like the first half of the season, right? They held Joe Burrow to 17 fucking points, but they gave up more to the Commanders. And I get the Commanders are a better team, but like you guys see the logic I'm going at here. It doesn't really make any sense. So if you don't make a monumental change at coach or quarterback, as far as things you could do right now, because like firing the GM, as much as Joe Shane deserves to get ripped for his job, I don't think that's going to do anything at this point. So you got to make some sort of a change to have your defense bought in to where the offense can spark. So I don't know, man. It just gets repetitive and redundant to talk about. But you take a look at the secondary, they weren't that good. Deonte Banks, I'll talk about him in a second. Andrew Phillips definitely struggled. His tackling yips from the Kentucky days definitely caught up to him against the Commanders. You had a couple of plays get away from him. Yak had the error in the end zone where him and Banks were supposed to switch. He was supposed to cover McLaurin. They didn't. And it was a touchdown, obviously. So Phillips, his first real bad game in Giants blue. That's the way I see it. Well, Deonte Banks, we know what flawed is, right? He had that penalty on one of the first drives. I believe it was on Noah Brown, and Flott just wasn't looking that way. First of all, I still don't know why our defensive backs are not looking towards the ball. That's a little strange to me. And as far as Banks goes, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say this. I don't know if this is because he's corner one, but I feel as if he's starting to become unplayable. I don't know if it's the scheme, if it's the coach, if it's the player lacking confidence. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it needs to stop because look at this great stat that we have from our buddies on Twitter. Look at this great stat. 6 touchdowns in 9 games this season, which means he's allowed 10 touchdowns in 23 career games. Nobody was expecting this guy to be Sauce Gardner. Nobody was expecting him to be Derek Stingley. Nobody was expecting him to be Darrelle Revis on day one. Hell no. 25th overall, you could kind of live with a disappointment of a pick, right? Other teams have done it. But he just looks like a straight fucking bust right now. Again, I don't know the scheme, that whatnot, whatever you want to blame it on. But the Giants had multiple avenues to address this. They had free agency because they knew that Adoree Jackson may not have been coming back. They knew that Flott was a fucking disaster at the second corner spot. So you have that. And you also had the draft, right? You could have, interestingly enough, they traded up for Banks. They traded up for Hyatt, who does not see the field ever. And you trade up for those guys, but you don't trade up for any of the corners that you want. Fairly interesting, right? And those two guys seem to be like decent corners. I mean, Lassiter, rough game against the Jets, but it looks like Kool-Aid's decent. Again, I haven't watched Saints football, but coming out of college, I like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I can't complain. But you select Tyler Nubin, but it's just a fucking hamster wheel of which need do we have to draft next. And again, I had people tell me, oh, you can't trade up for this, you can't trade up for that. Oh, they shouldn't have done this, they shouldn't have done that. Or the better argument is like, what are you talking about? The Giants should have traded up for Kool-Aid or Kamari Lassiter. They didn't have the picks. I'm like, well, you traded for Brian Burns. So you got what you deserve, right? Burns has 5 sacks on the season. Take what you will. Judge that trade how you will. What fucking ever. But Just look at this class. Just look at this class. Just look at the needs, too. Because you could say, oh, well, this guy's a great player, but it doesn't really solve a need, right? Malik Neighbors could be a great player, but if the Giants are stuck in a shithole for the next few weeks because they did, or next few years, because they may have not gotten a quarterback in that class, by hook or by crook, then you're going to say, well, they should have taken a quarterback in that class, and maybe the rest of the class works out, right? So just because you make the right pick for your team sometimes doesn't mean that you made the ultimate essential right pick. But Deonte Banks, as I said, he's becoming literally unplayable. We're slowly sloping down to that, and he just has no head ball skills. He doesn't. I mean, he had 2 INTs last year, one against the Patriots and one against blanking on the team right now, Washington. That was not 2 weeks in a row. It was both at Giant Stadium, which is MetLife Stadium, trash can that it is. But this year, nothing at all. Let's look at how many breakups he has. Let's look at his stats there on the Pro Football Reference, and it probably doesn't update till Wednesday in terms of logistics. But 15 points higher in the completion percentage, and he's got over 100 passer rating, 6 touchdowns allowed. And he had 11 pass deflections last year. He has 6 so far this year, which is an improvement, but no interceptions. So something's got to give. Either you're a ball hawk, but you get your fair share of beating in the ass, or it's like, okay, this guy's not a ball hawk, but he's a good corner. So we're not really in either of those territories right now. We're in a bad territory with Deonte Banks. The Giants might have to, as I said, I don't know that Deonte Banks would be a good corner too in this scheme. I don't know that because I have yet to see that, right? Because you could have, this defense kind of set up to be that way. You don't have a corner 1. You just have 2 corner 2s. Adoree's on one side or Flott's on one side and Banks on the other. And Banks is still getting his ass kicked. So, again, there's where, the fine line comes in. But that's pretty much that. We're 32 minutes into this. Do I dare talk about draft position? Well, the Giants are 7th overall right now. So if you want to root for losses, you can. If you want to root for wins, you can. But as far as what the Giants will do with the trade deadline, what will the New York Football Giants do? My prediction is they trade Aziz. I would like to trade him and Slayton because rather than get something for them now. This whole hanging on to Darius Slayton argument is a bunch of bullshit in my opinion. He's a solid receiver, but you could find him on a day 3. There's so many receivers throughout drafts that have worked out either in round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, undrafted free agent. There are guys that are on this roster, or again, as I just mentioned, in the later rounds that you could find value in and say, okay, he's our next Slayton. I don't understand this. Why would you keep Aziz? Why would you keep? Now, if I wanted to keep one of them, I keep Aziz. But if you wanted to, okay, we're gonna trade both of them, which that would be the smart decision. But they're only trading Aziz. This is the part of the season, and the Giants organization is really not going to accept or buy into that because they don't want to admit that the season's already over, fucking 9 games in. But you're supposed to see at this point, what do you have on the roster, right? Your veterans are on the offensive line. At some point, give Evan Neal a shot. See what you have with this wide receiver core. The backups, Bryce Ford Wheaton, et cetera, throw balls to Jalen Hyatt, maybe get his trade stock up. Defensively, I mean, there's not really much to see defensively. You have Masau, who's a guy who's fairly decent special teamer and really has not curved well to the NFL linebacker position, but it is what it is. Like, comment, subscribe to all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. I appreciate y'all coming back and sticking with me through these episodes. Trust me, they're not easy to do with this football team being absolute garbage, but I appreciate you guys. Keep that blood pressure low, and we'll be back on Saturday, it looks to be, with a Carolina Panthers preview, and of course, we hope to get a content creator on for that. Peace out.